So let's talk about our closing thoughts and overall thoughts on
Hmm.
this. And with Space Wolves, I would agree with you. I think that they're going to still be competitive, but I actually think that they're going to be competitive for different reasons other than we run Stormlance and we play all Thunderwolf Cavalry and we, flood the board with all these Thunderwolf Cavalry. I think they're going to be competitive because now they have a detachment that is actually pretty good for what they want to do anyways. And then I think Stormlance is still going to be good with the build that people are doing, but it's going to bring it back to like a more manageable, like less, I don't know, like less potent, because basically what it would give you is you basically get a free squad of scouts with if you take 3 of them, you get 60 points and scouts are 65 points. So like you're basically losing a scout squad to that list.
Hmm.
And I think that's not nothing. I mean, that's a side objective getter, with scouts. So those lists will be hit a little bit, but I don't think it'll be uh I don't think it's going to like eliminate that list from the game. So, but I think that the Champions Over Us, I would like to see how people start playing that and whether it shows up in the like competitive scene, because I actually think it has a lot of potential.
My thoughts with Space Wolves is we could maybe see a slight dip in their win percentage because we have side upgrades to other factions, and you might see other factions pushing Space Wolves back down. The other thing I think is you could potentially have more Space Wolves players wanting to play them now because their detachment rule is actually not complete garbage now, and there will be a lot more people playing them, trying to figure out how to run them, which could lead to the whole Space Marines problem where they have a gazillion people playing them, so they have like the greatest win percentage. It's
Right.
law of averages. Um, so I don't know. You didn't get hit hard at all. I don't think.
No.
I feel like you could still run. You could still run Thunderwolf Cavalry. It's just you're gonna have a lot less things on the side to do secondary objectives, especially now that your Fenrisian Wolves can't do them.
They fit a role more as opposed to just being your army.
Yeah.
That's what they should be, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I guess if that's what was winning the majority of Space Wolves games, then yeah, maybe we'll see a dip. But I think there's then
So what about orcs?
with orcs. Um, I don't know. I feel bad for my Mega Knobs. I think for me, it was kind of like another lesson learned in this codex. And luckily, I'm not paying the price of learning this lesson. I've seen other people, like on Reddit, for instance, that are paying the price of learning this lesson. And it's a valuable lesson everybody should learn. Is always like keep the rule of cool in mind when you're building your army. Like, if you really like Mega Knobs and you want to have like 15 Mega Knobs, more power to you, go for it. But if you're going to buy 4 or 5 boxes of Mega Knobs because when the Codex got released, they were really good, and you're like, I'm going to chase the meta. Don't chase the meta, because now those people who have 4 boxes of unpainted Mega Knobs sitting in their pile of shame, it's just going to become a lot harder for them to paint those 4 boxes of Mega Knobs in it. Don't chase
Yeah,
meta. It hurts that a cool unit. I bought them because they're cool, and I was really excited to play them. Now that they got hit hard, I'm just like sad for my boys that are sitting.
yeah, I think that's a good lesson. Just the rule of cool, because we played one game and then the game changed on us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like play what you think is cool because the game is going to continuously update and change. The meta is going to shift, and the thing that doesn't have to change is what you buy. You just buy what you think is cool and play what you think is cool, and let the meta shift around you and continue playing what you like, especially in casual settings.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think another thing you kind of brought up is like the fact we played one game and the rules changed. Like, one thing I'm starting to find now that we're a little further into 10th is like I like that they are willing to update the game to bring balance to it, but it's pretty hard to keep up with all the rules changes that are happening constantly. And I think one thing that maybe we're learning, we're learning this last game as we're playing through it is like know the rules, the core rules pretty solidly, but like don't hang on to like any one rule like I don't know, like it's one of the 10 commandments or something. It's set in
Yeah.
stone. Like the rules change so much that they're not always worth committing to memory because there's so much errata and stuff coming out constantly. Sometimes these new rules are coming out so frequently. Luckily, the new rules don't come out every quarter, but they change pretty frequently that you're just like, all right, how long is this going to be a rule for?
Yeah, I just hope that they don't change core stuff too often, because then it will be kind of a chore to keep up on it.
Hmm.
I mean, at the same time, it is a hobby. So, like, you likely are keeping up on it because you enjoy keeping up on it. But, like,
Hmm.
I can understand that some people hate it because, they don't want to have to do work to play a game that they just want to have fun in.
Yeah, they're like, I gotta go to Kinko's now to print off this errata.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, here's a lesson. Don't print out stuff, and maybe this is a lesson to Games Workshop too. Like, they have codexes that are completely outdated because of this.
Hmm. Yeah, I think overall for the orcs, I don't think we got hit too hard, and I think we're gonna get hit harder with the upgrades to like custodies and stuff. Um, so I think our win rate's gonna go down, but I think it's mostly gonna go down because other factions got better.
I think that orcs are going to go back to the drawing board after this, because I think that there was a clear path to what was best, and now they have to try to figure out again what is best, because it seems like this change kind of took away the things that were obvious, and now there's going to be some trial here.
Well, here's what I think is. I know a lot of people hate Green Tide, from what I've heard. Well, you're gonna see a hell of a lot more Green Tide because with Mega Knobs getting hit so hard, I think a lot of people are gonna reconsider running Bully Boys, and they're gonna go, I got 120 boys sitting in my cabinet. I'm gonna start running 120 boys, and you're gonna see a lot more Green Tide, is what I predict.
Yeah,
And people are gonna
I can
hate.
see that.
They're gonna hate orcs.
I this is what I personally hope comes out of this is people start looking at the beast boss on Squigosaur, beast Snagaboys, and your favorite model. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but
Mazrog.
yeah, I hope they start looking at that set of models, the Squighog Boys, because those are some
Mm-hmm.
of my favorite models of works. And maybe people start experimenting with that again, and not just being so locked in on Green Tide or Bully Boys.
Yeah, I still think the original detachment might be the best with sustained hits. So,
It is good.
and you're not like locked into one, like trying to maximize one type of unit where you're running Green Tide, you're going to try to maximize boys. If you're running Bully Boys, you're going to be maximizing knobs, mega knobs, and war bosses. War Horde, you get sustained hits basically for everything. You can
So,
be more of
okay.
a Highlander type army. A little bit of everything sprinkled in.
Which fits right into your rule of cool.
Yeah, and I do want to get Gaz at some point. He's I've kind of been eyeing him as my next purchase. And like I think that fits in thematically with Gaz, where he's trying to unite like all the tribes, and so I can
Yeah.
have like all the stuff running together in a giant war horde. So be pretty sweet.
So with all of the other changes that came out with this balanced data slate, we talked about our orcs and space wolves. How do you feel about it? What do you know, is there anything that you really liked? Is there anything that you really didn't like? Any closing thoughts on the core rules and the balanced data slate, not specifically around our stuff?
I think a lot of good rules clarifications that should have been in the original rules, like the fast rolling clarification for command point reroll. That kind of stuff is really good. Things that I think are just common sense, also good, like the whole tank shock, where it's like big thing hit harder rather than big thing with big sword harder when it
Yeah.
runs into you. Like, was he leading with the sword? Doesn't really melee attack. Anyways, um, good changes. Bad change. Obviously, we went over this. The pivot rule. Don't make the rules. Don't make your rules for the lowest denominator. Lowest common denominator. A little bit
Right.
better. Like give people a little bit more credit that they can figure out how to do instead of dumbing it down so much that you add to the game. I think overall, all the core rules to me, all very positive, but the one negative rule, the pivot rule, is pretty bad. So I expect it to be errated pretty quickly, because I think probably tournament organizers they're going to be having their own for it in tournaments. I would imagine we'll be having a house rule for it ourselves because the rule is written not good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. You know, I really like the willingness of Games Workshop to balance their game and not just from a point standpoint. It's such a refreshing bit of change to us coming from other games to see them actually working on mechanics and not just points. So props to Games Workshop for that, like with the Adeptus Mechanicus and Tyranids. That stuff is cool.
Custodes.
And Custodes, my detachment, Champions of Russ. That stuff it's cool. I like that. I like the rules clarification. It makes things unambiguous. And it seems like they're intentionally trying to remove like gamey stuff where people like in tournament settings would be like, well, rules is written, and they like do something that just is irritating, basically.
Yeah, can
It
I
seems like
chime
they're
in for a second on
yeah, go
what
ahead.
you're talking about with rules balancing? That I think is so good. I want to give Games Workshop kudos on doing this because it's almost like they like did a change to make Custodes not as good with the rules. With the dev wounds change, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it made Custodes worse. And then, you know, now that the codex has come out and they're still struggling, they've gone back and updated that same rule again to buff Custodes because Custodes have been struggling because of the rule change, and now it makes them relevant again. And I think that's great because, like, again, other games learn a lesson from this, please, because like they did changes to like clones in Star Wars Legion where they have updated the rules several times to hurt Republic, and they haven't done anything ever to like they just basically keep taking away and they never give back when they're like, oh, we clearly took too much, like uh like Rex for
Yeah.
clones, like they really just what did they do to my boy,
Instead of doubling down on it like it was in Star Wars Legion, it seems like Games Workshop is willing to uh, reconsider, things that these changes that they've made, and take another swipe at it. They're like willing to to accept the fact that they were not making a perfect change.
They're
Like,
like,
oh
yeah, we
yeah, we
messed
went too
that up.
far. Yeah.
So yeah, sorry to step on your closing remarks, but I just want you brought up like the balance through the rules change. I shout out some W for doing that change. So go ahead.
No, that I mean, you're all good. Yeah, I think like that's probably the biggest takeaway is just they're willing to do mechanical work as opposed to just points changes, which we really appreciate. Um, and then obviously, I'll just echo what you said. The movement pivot stuff is really dumb, and they should absolutely do what they did for these other things and quickly change it. So if they do that, then I think we'll be happy. But yeah, I'll echo what you said, and just like to make it completely clear, catering rules to make them easier for new players. We are new players, but catering rules to be like, oh, this is just like an easy way to do this, and it's a shortcut.
It's too hard
It
for the new players to figure out.
But it not even that. It's like it opens up the possibility for things to be gamed instead of just learning the right way to do it. It games the system, and then you're like, why did we go down this path? We went down this path with Star Wars Legion with the cover rules, which are objectively broken, but they did it to make it easier for the new players. And it didn't make it easier. It just made it really gamey. So I hope they undo that. And I don't think that that's a direction they should take any of this. I understand the 10th edition is a game that they marketed as like simple, not simpler, not simple, or whatever. Like they want it to be easier, like an approachable game. There is a certain extent where it gets too simple and it gets exploitable and it gets just dumb and it doesn't make any sense, thematically, that once a vehicle does one pivot, then suddenly it can do donuts, and it doesn't matter how many donuts it does, it can still go the same distance. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, make a
So
errata that says if you pivot more than 3 times, your vehicle explodes, and it automatically does a
deadly demise
yeah,
or whatever.
the deadly demise automatically succeeds.
It explodes.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically my closing thoughts. I really hope that they take a look at the movement again very soon.
But yeah, just before we end it, we are getting very long on this one, but I think
Yes.
there's so many updates it's warranted for this. Maybe we could have. Hey, we got the time. Overall, I think both of us think that all the changes very good. Just the one movement rule kind of overshadows some of those changes a little bit of, I think, what's been a very positive data slate and points up. Overall, I think great for the game, especially with the new Pariah Nexus objectives coming out. I think the game's going to be a healthy state, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a resounding I'm more excited to play next time than I was like 2 days ago. So
Yeah.
so I'm apart from the things that we're frustrated with, obviously we feel like the game is going in a good direction, and we're very excited to play our next one.
You just listened to a clip from Inwarp Mag. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our full podcast episodes right here on our channel. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to our podcast or to listen to more of our awesome clips.